Oh, just in here? Oh, oh. And there is RD. What's up, RD? I've been smoking the pipe about all day, day off north. I was smoking some John Bull earlier. This pipe here, I'm gonna have to get a 5/32 drill bit and fix that draft hole. Then she'll smoke real good. I did got some John Bull sitting out drying for tomorrow. So I think that's what's wrong with this pipe. When they drilled the hole in there, they didn't drill the 5/32 in there. Which, oh, wait a minute, I'll tell you. Drinking tea. Without there's nothing in the bowl. But it feels like the bowl is packed. And that draft hole should not be. Feels like there's tobacco in there, but that draft hole is a little smaller. So I'm gonna open that up. That's right, John Bull's no bull. Because when you take a light, that's how normal pipes are. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera. But down in the bottom of that bowl, supposed to be almost like a figure 8. I mean, it's dead center. Well, that's now another something. That is not a full. That's not a full hole. So next week, I'm gonna talk to a friend of mine, see if I can get a 5/32 drill bit and a drill. I'm gonna fix that hole. Once I do, this pipe should smoke like it should. I'm not getting rid of it. And I found out the price on this pipe. It's like 10 something. It's one of those type of pipes that cheap, one of those knock around pipes. And maybe good for a couple smokes or whatever. And then you can pitch it. Did you get that short I sent you from YouTube or RD? Basically, but I'm not gonna throw it away. I'll be right back. I'm back. Yes, RD. That's an actual. Oh, I will take it back. Yeah, that team is called the Savannah Bananas. It's an actual baseball team. I was watching them on TV earlier. Gotta watch them. Watch them on YouTube. Yeah, I watch them all the time. Especially funny, especially if you've been sitting there drinking beer. They'll say, working on the pipe. No, it's called the Savannah Bananas. They'll dance and everything. Oh yeah, I know what you're saying now. Never mind, RD. Sorry. It's scripted, but it's an actual real baseball game. Even the Empire will stand there and dance. They do that. The last ball game they had, they sold out. 81,000 fans come to see them. They do that type of stuff just to keep the fans occupied. Oh yeah. Turn it down a bit more. I smoked something that Swift Current coffee today too. So I mean, I had a pretty good day today. Last coffee today. I sat outside for a while. Uh, Monday, I put made a post. I said everybody knows my birthday Monday, so I'm going to do a live between 3 and 4. And for those that cannot make it to that live, I will do a live later that night to make it fair for everybody. So I'll probably do it outside, weather permitting. But I have to make sure my phone's charged up real good. If the weather's not cooperating, I'll still have live. Tomorrow is Mother's Day. If your mom's still around, wish her happy Mother's Day. Give her the day off. do something, want to take her out to eat or fix a meal for her and do the dishes. Let your mama have her day. She deserves it. Cause let me tell you, yeah, your mama, while she's still here, mine's been gone 28 years. Yes, sir. Give her, give your mom a little bit of that yak. She'll be alright. Give her some of that whiskey to make her tailnails curl, her hairs curl. Make sure your pinky's up. You know, when my mom was alive, I never named my mom to ever drink. Ever. If she didn't do it around those kids. Now my dad, he drunk, but he quit back in 89, 90, and that's when his health went downhill. He lived till 2005, but he had so many health issues after he quit drinking. My mom passed away. I'll tell you what, it'll be 28 years a couple days ago in the 7th. She passed away 5 days before my 17th birthday. She was only 51 years old when she passed. Now, like I said, now my dad was an alcoholic, but he didn't drink around us kids. He may came home drunk, but he never, you know. And I'm the same way today. I won't drink around kids. I'll go hide somewhere. And if I have a mixed drink, like I got like Jack Daniels and Coke, Jack and Coke, they'll say, "Oh, what are you drinking?" Oh, so I'm sitting here drinking Pepsi, or I'm drinking Coke, and you'll see the pop in there, but there's more than pop in that glass. But that's one rule I've got. If I fight somebody over drinking with me, I tell them to keep their kids at home or find a babysitter. I do not want kids around. Not trying to be mean, but you never know. You know, they can get into beer, start drinking a crack can open if they're old enough. Um, if there's a fire going, fire pit going, something happens, they get in there and they're plastered. You know, but I always tell everybody you drink responsible, but you always bring a DD, a designated driver, with you. Somebody can take you. It may be your vehicle, but make sure you got a designated driver. That's way you can make it home safe. Whatever. Because if you get pulled over, something happens, you get pulled over, it come back on me. You know what I'm saying? Because they're going to ask you where you come from. Oh, I come from Jeff's place out there. He was having the hee-haw time. He finally made me leave. And they don't come knocking on my door. That's why I tried to tell Tim out there. I said, Tim, you got people coming here drinking. So I said, now you going to be responsible if something happens. No, I'm just telling you. That's the reason why I'm very particular who I drink with. If I know they can hold their liquor and they don't act stupid, dumb, and ignorant, then I'm all right with it. But if you're that type of person to drink see how fast you can get drunk. If you sit there and try to get drunk in the first half hour you showing up, you're going. You're out. I don't want you. I want you here. We'll see how fast you can see how many beers you can drink fast. You're going. So I don't put up with that. Now you come, enjoy, sit there, take your time, sit around the fire, take your time drinking, whatever, that's fun. You know. And you know when to quit. You say, well, Jeff, I'm done. You may sit there, drink a 6-pack or something, and say, Jeff, I'm done. That's fine. You ain't gonna make me mad. And you sit there and drink Pop Crust, say like we're there for 4 or 5 hours. And you brought a big quarter 6-pack of pop and stuff. You drink your 6-pack and say, Jeff, I'm done drinking. I'm gonna drink pop for another couple hours before I go home. That's fine. You're not gonna make me mad. I'd rather see you do that than get sobered up before you go home. I'm cool with that. I'd rather see you do that and always tell somebody, you message me when you get home. I tell my friend that all the time. Like, when she drops me off, I said, you message me when you get home. So I know you made home all right. Because something happened between here and Greenfield. But I'll be on the property next week. So that's one thing that she don't have to keep track. The only time she's got to come up here is bring me to my doctor. Any other time, I'll be back there by myself. I'll be smoking my pipes. Don't have to worry about society. I don't have to worry about neighbors. I can get as loud as I want. Talk as loud as I want. Don't have to worry about somebody coming knocking on my door. I got arrested. I almost got arrested one time. No, I wasn't even driving. I was on foot. They could have got me for public intoxication if they wanted to. And just for luck that night, me and my cousin just left the bar around midnight. And something told me to go down to the gas station. and get 2 bottles of pop. You know, the like these sizes. Walked uptown just for luck. I just happened to stick the key in, and I'm drinking this pop. I just got the first bottle down, and I was working on my second one. They came over and talked to us. They said, "You boys been down at the bar," because they know we went to the bar every weekend. Yeah. Well, how many did you have tonight? Maybe 3, maybe 4. I said, I'll come up here and sit, give me some more. This is my second bottle of pop. You can ask him. So they took him. He's my cousin. And he told me the truth. He went lying. Yeah, he got him 2 bottles of pop. That's his second bottle he's drinking. Of course, they knew who I was. But they knew, too, that, for one, I ain't gonna lie. 2, they know I ain't gonna cause no trouble to nobody. Number 3, they know I'll go home. So they come, "Oh, Jeff, going home, ain't you?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "After I get done drinking this pop," I said, "I just want to come up here and sip a little bit. Just watch people go by, driving or walking." "You don't got that far to walk, do you?" I said, "No, just a couple blocks." "Well, where at?" I said, "I ain't telling you." I don't have to answer that question. Right down. "Oh, yes, you have." And I said, "No, I don't." I said, my constitutional right of the Fifth Amendment, I don't have to answer that question. I said, "I'm going to plead the Fifth. That's my right." I don't have to tell you because I knew what they was wanting to do. Or I knew what they was wanting to do. I'm not stupid. I wasn't born last night. They was wanting to follow me home just to see if I was staggering, walking straight, staggering, or whatever. Or see if I was going to go straight home. You know, I got stopped one night. Another night, I got stopped by a cop because he seen me come out of Furman's one night. I had a can of pop in my hand. It was blue. It was a Pepsi. He talks to me. He says, "Hey," he looked at me. He says, "Jeff, is that you?" "Yeah, why?" He says, "What you drinking?" "So I'm drinking the Pepsi. What do you think I'm drinking?" He said, "I know you got Furman's." "Yeah, no shit." Like that. "Yeah, no shit." He was a cool cop. I mean, he wasn't those type, high sided pricks, whatever. But anyways, he says, "You going home, ain't you?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I live right down on Lafayette." The second, I said, "Go down here where Lafayette Street is, right?" And he says, "Yeah." I said, "I live in the house on the corner, the next house to it." He says, "Oh, okay." He says, "How many did you have tonight?" "Oh, I had a couple shots and a couple beers." I was lying. This is the only time I lied to a cop. Because me and my cousin was out at his stepdad's house. His stepdad was my cousin by marriage. Well, whoop, hold on a minute. But anyways, I lied. This is back in 2003, 2004. So he leaves. I walk down Daddy's, talk to a couple of them. It's like 10:30, 11:30 at night. So I'll go down there. Just the other cop was on patrol. Not the same one pulled me over, but there's another one. Just like I was standing there drinking coffee. And I had my back turned. Came in, got his stuff. He leaves. So I see which way he went. Just like he was going back to the police station. But everybody there knew that I just came from the bar, but they didn't say nothing. They said, Jeff, you better be hightailing it. You better be going home. They said, you live up on Lafayette, don't you? I said, yep. I said, I'm going straight to my dad's. I said, my dad's house ain't that far from here. I said, if I can walk up Maribel and go down Washington Street, walk up 4th, and if I hit South 4th Street and hit up Pine, go down Olive. I said, if I just hit Pine Street, I'm all right. Just for the luck of the day, I'll hit my dad's house and just happen to walk in my dad's door. Didn't turn no lights on or nothing. I had this feeling somebody was following me. I had this feeling. I didn't know if it was on foot or they was following me in the car with the headlights off. Cause say I'm hard of hearing, so I cannot hear anything behind me. Something told me to look out the my dad had blinds, so I just turned it up just a little bit. Happened to look out. There was the Greenfield Police Department down the street. So I figured he was following me, but he didn't know who I was. It was the same cop that pulled me over. Now I know it was him because he was driving the SUV. So I knew it was him. But I think what it was, when he turned the corner, like you go up Pine here, you got to make a left. So I think he was like 3 or 4 cars behind. So the only way he didn't stop, I figured that he didn't know which house I went into because he wasn't going to go knock on doors to find out which house I was into. Well, my dad was sitting there, and my dad never stays up that late at night unless he mistakenly took water pill, was taking his water pill for a sleeping pill. So I went and got me something to drink, walked in there, and Dad says, what's going on? I said, well, I said, I was out there at George's. And I said, me and Donald Fent went from there over to Furman's. I said, between me and him, we killed a 12-pack. And we went to Furman's, drank more than a couple shots. I said, a cop stopped me, thought I was drinking the beer because he seen me come out of Furman's. Now I told him I was going home. And I said, instead of that, I said, I went down to Daddy's for a little bit. And I said, a cop came in there and I said, I'll wait till he left. I said, I waited about 5-10 minutes. Then I said, then I took off. And I said, he just passed. I said, he just came. I said, he just passed. I said, he didn't know which house I came into. Well, we left George's, but George's passed out. I mean, we had a 30-pack, but we drank 6 apiece. But we weren't going to sit there all doggone night. So before I left the bar, I said, Don, I said, I'll get to you on the next round. So I said, I got a bad feeling I'm leaving. Well, I called Don the next day, that next evening. I said, you ain't going to believe this. He says, what? I said, as soon as I walked out of the bar, that can of pop last night. He says, yeah. So I got stopped. He thought I was drinking the bitters. And I told him I was going home. I said, it's right down the street here. And I said, I didn't. I walked down there to my dad's house. He says, don't feel bad. He says, I got stopped. Said, oh, you did. I said, was he drunk? Yeah. He says, luckily I didn't go to jail. He says, I got a ride home. But he says, I never, you know, went to jail that night. Donald's the type of person, Donald can handle it, but you get him not running coke and beer at the same time, look out. I've seen him pull a crowbar on a guy, went to his house, he's yelling and screaming, just like in the middle of the night. Just like 12:30, 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, he's out there with that crowbar. Get your blood out, I'm going to beat this crowbar. I just took it out swinging it on his doggone riding bar. Well, they got him for DUI on the riding bar. They got him for causing disturbance, threatening to do bodily harm, and something else. Well, they dropped the other charges on him, and the only thing they charged him for was the DUI on the mark. So, what I did is I went up to the police department and talked to him. He's already out of jail. So I told them guys, I said, next time you got to take those boys home or anything they're on that mark, call me. Here's my dad's phone number and here's my cell phone number. I got keys to Mars. I'll come and get it. Don't confiscate it. I'll come. I said, I'll come and get it, drive it home. I said, I'll drive it down to their house. And I said, I don't live that far from them. You know, and I said, them boys know, Donald and Daryl, they know. Daryl got DUI on the bicycle, and I'll tell you how he got it. He was out there, George's drinking. See, Daryl drinks to the point where he's drunk. And I mean, absolutely fall down drunk. Well, I wasn't out there that night when this happened. I was told about it, but I wasn't out there. Or I wasn't even get on that bicycle. You got, say, like this main drag is Jefferson Street. Well, apparently he went up Jefferson because on this side, on your left side would be Community Markets, which is a grocery store, and cross street Snooker, which is a gas station. Well, he went to turn down, that'll be 10th Street. Well, he went down 10th Street and made a left on Maribel. And apparently when he turned on Marbo, he struck a car. Side of him on his bike. And so happens, it happened in the summer, and so happens the car he struck, the people sitting outside. So happened. And they knew who it was. And they knew he was drunk. And the only thing he was trying to do was trying to get home. Well, they wind up finding him and they arrested him. So a couple days later, I stopped out there at George's and I told George, George, it was towards evening time. I said, George, do you mind? Yeah. I said, George, do you mind if I go get a 30 pack and if you let me, I said, if you let me stay all night tonight, I'll get a 30 pack plus a pizza. Because I said, I want to drink some. You know, I can't drink down my dad's house. He said, well, yeah. Well, by the time I was sitting there about ready to leave, here comes Fred over. Well, he happened to see Fred out the door. He kind of looked at me and said, Jeff, you better wait. Why? Fred's out the door. Okay. Fred comes in. He says, hey, boys, you want to drink some beer? Yeah, why not? It was the weekend. That's one time I went out there over the weekend because I know the managers that you can stay up to 14 days out there, but got too many nosy people wants to start trouble anyways. Well, Fred didn't know our plan. So I'll go over and get a 12 pack and his tickets, brought it back, sitting there drinking. Hey, Jeff, see how many beers we got? I told him. I kind of lied about it. He says, that can't be. I said, Fred, you're drinking 3 to 4 to our one. You're drinking like water, Dave. Well, he says, here, take these tickets over to cash me and get me this amount of tickets and another 12 pack. And that's when George picked up and says, Fred, this is going to be the last 12 pack for tonight. He says, I'm not staying up all night tonight like last time. This is it. So what I did, I went and got the 12 pack, came back, opened that one up. I saved the other ones. There's only like 4 or 5 left in the other one, so I kept those in packing by using the other 12 pack. Well, Fred got drunk with the snot within less than half an hour, 45 minutes. He's plastered. He's done for. Me and George just getting started on the beer. So we get Fred home. So we got back on. So George, there's 4 or 5 beers from the other 12 pack plus what's left in there. Just do what? I said, yeah. So go look. But I said, I'm going over here to get another. I said, I'm going to get a 30 pack. So I went and got 30 pack, came back, ordered pizza, yada, yada, yada. Well, that's when George started telling me about what happened there. And I said, George, I would have kept him here. But see, I found out he was drinking whiskey on top of that. And George had a rule with Daryl that he can come out and drink, but bring no whiskey. Because he cannot handle whiskey and beer at the same time. He wants to fight everybody. So what cost him, what he says, I had to make him leave, Jeff. I said, why? He says, well, you had whiskey on him. He says what he was doing was every time I went to the bathroom, I didn't sit, but he says, I caught him, but he says, that's how I caught him. He says, every time I went to the bathroom, he had that bottle beside of him in a sack, and he was drinking real quick when I was going to use the bathroom, put it back. And he says, I made him leave, but he had to keep the whiskey there at George's, because if he would have got pulled over and they seen half that bottle's gone, they could have got him for opening containers. So went on. A couple days later, next day, next morning we got up. George says, "You want some breakfast?" I reckon. He says, "Well, if you help me," he says, "we can have bacon and eggs." All right. So we sat there and had breakfast, drank a few beers. Well, he says he he had to go do something. I said, "Well," I said, "I got to go and check on my dad anyways and make sure." I said, "I'll come back out here later. Just give me a promise about what time you'll be back." So I gave him my dad's number. I said, "Just call me and I'll be out." So around about 6 or so, he says, calls down there, without answering the phone. Dad says, "Joe George is on the phone." So I answered it. I said, yeah, I'll be out there in a little bit. Just give me enough time. I said, "Dad's going to be all right for a little bit." I said, "If something comes up, I'll call you." I said, "I got to go to the health store do something." Well, I went out. Well, there sat Donald Durham. Well, I was going to get more beer that night, which I didn't care. So we was all sitting around there drinking. Well, we all pitched in to get a couple pizzas. We divided the price up and each one paid so much. So we got a couple pizzas and everything on it. Well, next thing you know, their sister calls out there. And I said, "George, you want me inside for you?" He said, "Yeah, go ahead." So I answered it. Well, it was her sister on the phone. They was wanting to see if the boys was out there. Well, Erica, Daryl's girlfriend, Erica was with him. Well, she was wanting Daryl for something. Daryl wouldn't say what. Well, Will's middle just got done eating. Will's middle drinking. Well, Daryl says, "I ain't gonna go down there right now." He says, "I'm sitting here drinking. I'm gonna do what I want that night." Now, if I was if I was in her position, I would have came out there and got him. That would have been me. Well, he was, he was drunk. Well, next thing you know, they leave. No, Donald left. Donald left. Then probably about 20, 30 minutes later, Daryl left. But Donald says he'll be back out. He says he's going to go over Furman's for a little bit, and he says so he'll pop back out. in which we knew that Donald wasn't going. No, Donald was going down to the other bar, and we knew he wasn't going to come back out. Well, next thing you know, Daryl and Erica leaves. Well, next thing you know, just like 9:30, just got dark. Just got dark when they left. Well, they left before it got dark. But anyways, next thing you know, George gets a phone call from Boo, which is Donald Daryl's sister. And next thing you know, he was getting a knock on the front door. Well, George was on the phone to her, and George says, "Answer that." So I went up to the door and I answered, and they said, "Are you George Carver?" No, I said, I mentioned my name. I said, I'm family. I said, "Is everything all right?" I said, "Right now he's on the phone, but can I help you?" It wasn't the police department or nothing. It was somebody. They said, "Well, the reason why we're here is because Daryl's up there laying in front of the store up there, passed out drunk on the sidewalk, and Eric is just standing there." Do what? All right, I'll let him know. We'll go up there. So George gets off the phone. He says, "Jeff, who's that?" I said, "I don't know who that party was, but they were saying that Daryl's up here laying on the doggone sidewalk up here where the church is up here beside the store." And I said, "He's up there laying there because he's standing there." He says, "Well," he says, "Boo was saying the same thing to me." So I said, I told Sal, "We'll walk up." I said, "I ain't walking up there." And he said, "I ain't either." Because we've been drinking we was drinking big part of the evening. We ain't gonna go to jail. So Marilyn called George back up and she says, "It's Jeff there." He says, "Yeah, he's standing right here." Well, he's sitting right here on the couch. So George handed me the phone. I said, "Who is it?" He says, "Boo." So I said, "Hello." She says, "Meet so and so. Go through George's back side door and meet me so and so. Come up here." I said, "Okay." She said, "I'm going to need your help." I said, "George, keep his door unlocked." I said, "I'm back." Got up there. Sure, freaking enough. There he laid. Passed out. Poor Erica. Poor Erica didn't know what to do because her mentality, her mind, she didn't know what to do. Only thing our poor girl could do is just stand there. But the way she was standing there, somebody could have thought that she knocked him out or something. So finally we got him come to. Finally get him in the van. And she says, "You go back down to George's?" I said, "Yeah, I think I better." went back down to George's, and we were sitting there drinking. He says, "Was he passed out?" I said, "Yep." I said, "He made it up there that far and he just dropped over." And I told George that night, I said, "Much as I hate to say this, I said, I don't mean nothing by it, but I said, they're going to find him dead somewhere." I said, "He's going to be a drinking somewhere, and it's either he's going to get alcohol poisoning, or I said he's going to run his mouth to the wrong person and they're going to beat him to death." I said, "That's what's going to happen to him." Now, I haven't seen him in the last 6, 7 years or more, but I guarantee it when I go back to Greenfield, I'll guarantee you one thing, or I'll guarantee it, he's still drinking. That boy will drink until up till the day he goes to his grave, like his brother did. I hate to say it, I hate to say it, but I don't mind drinking around him because I'll tell him, and he knows my rule too. Daryl, I'll drink with you. I said, if you're drinking not whiskey and beer at the same time, too. I said, if you're drinking not whiskey and not beer at the same time, Daryl, I'm not going to be around you. So I said, I know how you get. Those boys, it's sad. And I'm not putting the boys down or anything. Those boys are illiterate, which means they cannot read or write. Only thing they know is to spell their name, and that's sad. Never had a high school education, and Donald he died here. Oh Lord, I have to look. But he died cancer. He had throat cancer from smoking, drinking rum and coke and beer all them years. He went in remission, doing great. They told him no more smoking, no more drinking, because there's that possibility he'll come back. What he do? Goes back into it. Their mom passed away, and then he turned around not even a month later, if that, he dies. He passes away. The only one's got an education is their sister. Me and Derek got into it one time, and it was out there at George's, and George took up for me. It's all because of my dad. He says that's not your real dad. That's your stepdad. That's still right, your dad. And I said, I'm going to tell you something, Finn. I don't know where you got your information from, but I said, Estelle and my mother got a divorce back in 67 or 68. And I said, my dad and her got together in the 70s. I said, that's where me and Terry came along. Well, he kept it up and kept it up, kept running his mouth. He was drunk. And I said, I'm sitting on the couch here, George on my left hand side. He kept it up and kept running his mouth, kept running his mouth, kept running his mouth. And I said, George, I said, because I had respect for George's house, apartment. And I said, George, I said, he needs to quit. I said, he's pissing me off. And I said, I don't want to be disrespectful in your house. And I was talking to him like I'm talking to you. And I said, I don't want to be disrespectful, George. I said, I don't want to have to take him outside and beat him. He finally looked at Daryl and he says, Daryl, he says, that is enough. He says, you need to lay off. He done told you once. He ain't going to tell you again. He says, if you keep it up, he says, you'll be out of here and you won't come back here for a while. Now, he says, you need to lay off the high horse. Well, went long. He says, well, F you then. George says, that's it. Out. He said, I told you. He says, go. He says, Daryl, if you don't go, he says, I'll call the law and have you removed from here. He says, well, what about him? He says, he ain't doing nothing. He says, the only thing he's doing is sitting there minding his own business, drinking the beer. He ain't hurt nobody. He says, you're the one started on him. But he says, he's not going to sit here and disrespect me or my house. He says, now if you said it outside, he says, I would have been a whole different story. He said, I wouldn't care if he beat your house or not. Like that. But he says he ain't going to do it here because he ain't going to get no trouble. Or get me in trouble. So he kept up. So he calls Boo. Told Boo what was going on. And he told Boo, he says, you better come get him, cause if not, he says, I'm gonna call the police department. Well, about this time, he leaves. Mary comes out there and talks to us. She says, this is what happened. I said, well, he got started on about my dad. Saying my dad is not my real dad, that's the right's my real dad, and it's not the other. And I said, you can ask George. I said, George, we don't, I said, I don't know what brought that on. George says, yeah, he says, all of a sudden he just started on him. He started running into him. Then she says, she says, I wonder if he's been drinking any whiskey prior before he came here. Me and George looked at one another and said, well, we never gave our thought. So she says, which way did he go? I said, he walked out George's back door and he hit like he's going up towards the gas station right there on up. But I said, you never know, he could be lingering out there. You never know, he could be passed out there somewhere. She says, I'll tell you guys what, both of you, if you can do me a favor. Walk, she says, you boys walk from here up to that gas station up there. Because one thing I do is walk out towards the back door Because there's two different apartments there. Where he was at is for people on disability and stuff on income. Then you had the other side over there for families, 2 stories. Where you have to walk from George's back patio door, you walk up, you have the laundry room right here on your left hand side where you gotta walk around and cross into the parking lot out and up. It's probably not even 5 minutes, if that. Truthfully, not even that. Just in case he happened to fall and she couldn't find him. And she says, just like, I don't know, about 8:30, 9 o'clock. I stay still close till 10 o'clock. 10 or 11. I forget what time. But anyways, she says, I'll meet you guys up there. And she says, I'll get you guys 12 pack. All right. Even though we had plenty of beer in the refrigerator. But we didn't tell her that. Let me get used to the bathroom and I'll tell you what happened. Well, we walked up and just for freaking luck. But George locked his apartment up before we left. Just for luck. Well, we walked up there, and lo and behold, there was Daryl inside the store. So Marilyn, she goes by Blue, but her real name is Marilyn. Well, Marilyn handed us the money for a 12 pack. She handed it to me. No, she handed the money to George. She says, now don't say nothing to him. You just happened to walk in. And just say that, hey, Marilyn's looking for you. Who's looking for you? Like that. Well, here he was buying to steal till 11 beer. Bought a couple of them. Well, he said, why you guys doing in here gonna buy more beer? No. Marilyn's looking for you. And the only reason why we're here, I said, she's out in the parking lot. And I said, the only reason why we're here is just to make sure that you weren't passed out somewhere along the freaking road up through here. I said, he's out there. So we followed him out. Got him in the van. She was already ripping him. She says, I'll catch you guys later. All right. He made sure she left. He went and got. They said, you know him? Yeah, we know him. George says, yeah, he's my stepson. I said, he's my cousin. They said he's drunk, ain't he? George says, well, yeah, he's more than drunk. Well, we went back down there, drunk. I don't know, we drank probably about 5, 6 beers apiece because we had a 30 pack. Well, we had actually had 2 30 packs plus 12 pack. Well, George, this about 10 o'clock. George said, well, I'm going to bed. I said, I ain't too far behind you. I might drink maybe 1 or 2 more, and then I'm going to crash. So I said, go ahead and go into bed, George. I'll flip all the lights out. I slept on the couch. So I was sitting there. This is probably about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Well, next thing I know, there was a door, knock at George's door, back door, sliding glass door. I'm thinking, who in the hell is knocking this time of the night? Now, I didn't want to wake him up. So he had one of those top curtains that you pull and slides across. So I just eased it, just let them just see who the hell it was from the opposite side. Here was Daryl. I think that's that blank back out here. So he kept a knocking, kept a knocking, kept a knocking. Went long. By God, he went to the front door. Kept a knocking, and then he started hooping and hollering. So, because I was already laying down, half asleep. So I went and got George up. I said, George, and George has to wear a hearing aid. So George put his hearing aid in. I said, put your hearing aid in where you can hear me. I said, damn Daryl's out there. I said, he was knocking on your back glass door. Now he's out front out here, knocking on your door, hooping in the front of the hard and screaming out here. He says, shit. I said, I didn't mean to wake you up, but I said, I want you to know what's going on. He says, no. He says, you're all right. So I said, so I'll back you up. So opened the front door up. There, sure enough, there he stood. Snatched him up, pulled him in, and said, and George closed the door, and he says, what in the hell are you doing back out here? I said, he says, you're going to get me in trouble. Well, by this time, he's already woke up 4 or 5 neighbors up. Well, like, here we go. So I slipped my boots on and I said, George, I said, I'm splitting. I said, no, I ain't gonna split. I said, you know the law's gonna be out here, right? And I'm not gonna lie. Well, sure freaking enough, 20 minutes later, the law shows up out there. And we explained to the officer what happened and everything. Talked to both of us, checked our IDs and everything. And I said his sister came and got him. I said he come back out here. I said both of us. I said he was in bed. I was sleeping on the couch, and I said the only reason why I'm out here is so just in case something like this would happen. So he looked at George. They looked at him and said, "What do you want to do?" He says, "You ain't staying here." He said, "I told him once tonight he had to go." And he got back out here. He must snuck out of the house. So George told me to call down there at the house. So I called down there. Donald answered the phone. I said, Donald, I said, your brother snuck out of the house. I said, he's back out here in Georgia. I said, he was causing disturbance, pounding on the back glass. And I said, sliding glass door. And I said, he went out front. And I said, he was pounding, yelling, screaming, basically calling this everything but a white man. I said, you better have your sister come out here and get him or he's going to go to jail. So that officer says, well, I said, yeah, she'll be out here to get him. And because they know these boys. He says, Daryl, you know better. He says, I'll give her about 20, 25 minutes to get here to get you. If not, you're going to go to jail for the night. Then 15 minutes came out there and got him. Well, the last thing I can remember was he got in trouble. He went in front of Junkins, the judge. The judge told him if he would come to him in front of him one more time, he's going to do 6 months in the county jail. He told him, he said, I'm getting tired of you coming in front of me like that. He said, I'm getting tired of it. And he showed me the paperwork. Sure enough, next time he went in, he had 6 months hanging over his head. Well, he calmed down for a while. Well, Donald got fired from the bar one night because he got so drunk in there and throwing stuff, throwing chairs, flipping tables over. Fired him for 30 days. Well, of course, everybody knew who owned it. Old Kurt Martin. He's dead now, but Kurt throws him out. Well, I seen Kurt one night because I had to bounce for him one night. I was one of his bouncers for the night. I said, what you kick him out of the bar for? Well, Jeff, you know how he gets when he gets drinking out rum and coke and stuff, and it gets to his head, and somebody could be joking with him, he takes it the wrong way, and he wants to fight me. That's the typical Donald. I won't forget that night I had to take his riding mower home. He was drunk. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad when the bar owner knows your sister's number, calls her to come get him. His motor's sitting out back. I had my own personal keys for riding mowers. So I told her, I said, you just keep my key on you. I'll drive his mower down there and I'm going straight over to Dad's house. All right, Jeff. Drove his mower down there, parked in his normal spot, and took my keys out. And she said, Jeff, you want to ride over? I know it ain't far, but I don't want to see you get stopped. Well, I reckon. I appreciate it. She says, well, if you help me make sure he gets in the house. I said, well, you got Dad's number, right? Yeah. If I have any problems with him, let me know. I said, I'm going to be up for a while. Says, well, you need anything from the store or anything? I said, yeah, I'll go up and get me a 6-pack and I'll sat on Dad's front porch for a while, and I said, "You got my number, right?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "If something happens, call me." Well, about an hour later, eh, it's like 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. The bar didn't close about 2:30 on the weekends. Well, that's what happens. I was working on my third beer. Next thing you know, my phone goes off, and I knew who it was. She says, "Hey, Jeff, you up?" Well, yeah. I said, "I'm sitting on Dad's front porch." She says, "Well, I hate to bother you." I said, "You ain't bothering me none." I said, "What's up?" She says, "Well, I'm going to need your help with the boys." I said, "Don't tell them they took off and Daryl went with me." She says, "Yeah, they're up at the bar and Daryl's wanting to start a fight." Well, I was about halfway through, because I got those Busch Lights 16-ounce cans, 6 packs. Well, I said, "Well, come on, come get me." "I'm going to put this beer in the refrigerator." And I said, because I always had a bag out front, which means put my empty beer cans in. So I grabbed that and put the beer in the refrigerator, finished out the can off. We went up there. She says, "Which way the best go?" "The park." I said, "My best bet for you to park out back. That's where we can." I said, "What we'll do is," I said, "we'll go through the back door. We'll get him out of here, get him in the van, and get him down to the house." All right. Walked in the bar. Well, the Proud Boys always stand where the back door is. There's a hallway. There's a door goes to the kitchen. You got the men and women's bathroom, and then the back door goes out. Well, Mike and them, Mike Pryor and his brother, and all of them stood there towards the tank. But anyways, walked up. Mike looks at me. "Say, Jeff, what the hell are you doing here?" "Well, if you look behind me," I said, "we're coming here to get those boys out of here." I said, "You see what's been going on?" He said, "Yeah, they're going to start a fight." I said, "Which one?" "Daryl." So I walked up. I said, I looked at both of them boys. I said, "Boys, you got to go." "Oh, we'll whip your hind end, blah, blah, this." I said, "You boys ain't going to do that squat thing." I said, "If you look right standing right there," I said, "she's coming to get you." "Well, who is?" I said, "Well, if you turn around and look." They turned around. They seen their sister standing there, and she looked down. "Both of you. Vehicle. Now." "But why is she doing here?" "Because she's, I cannot handle both of you at once." Plastered, I mean plastered, both of them. So we got them in the vehicle, got them to the house, got them in, got them settled down. I ain't doing nothing all day. So, anyways, they we waited a little bit, make sure they finally passed out, both of them. Well, the bar was still open, just like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. Says, "Come on, Jeff." So we went up there. So I want you to be my witness. Now, Kurt knowed not to serve whiskey to Thurman. The other bartenders knowed not to serve whiskey to Thurman. They know how many to rum and coke they can give Thurman. He can have like maybe 33, maybe 4. Depends on how much beer he's drunk. Well, they kept serving them. But what we found out, this one bartender was going behind everybody else's back and serving their whiskey, and they kept serving Donald rum and coke. After the fact that we was up there talking to him. So that one bartender got fired. And Kurt says, I'm not going to lose my license and my bar over them. Oh, somebody serving no, that ain't supposed to be serving them that. Well, he looks at, Kurt looks at me and says, just one beer. I don't got the money. He said, no, it's on the house. But give me a bottle real quick. You know what I drink. At the time, I was drinking Coors Light. So I drank that real quick. He takes me home. Well, I caught up with it the next day, and I said, you boys ever remember what you did last night? No, not really. I said, you boys almost caused chaos in the bar. What do you mean? I said, Tom, me and your sister brought you home. I had to drive your mother home. And I said, within an hour later, she calls me because you went back up to the bar. You stuck out of the house, thought nobody knows about it. And I said, you guys almost started a brawl. Because you guys had just about everybody riled up in there. And I said, I think you guys need to go up there. And I said, you owe Kurt and them an apology. And I said, there's somebody in there got fired because they were serving you. I told my friend Donald because they were serving you whiskey. And I told my friend Donald, you was only supposed to have 3, maybe 4 of those rum and cokes, and I was it. But they kept serving you, both of you. And nobody else didn't know about it because apparently you guys was getting the drinks and you was sneaking off with them. And Kurt them and they didn't know what he was doing that night. So I said, you guys owe him an apology. And see, technically in the bar, they ain't supposed to run a tab. That's illegal. Well, here in Ohio it is. I don't know about anywhere else, but you can't run a tab up. Because I know at the bowling alley, they serve alcohol and whiskey, but you got to pay for it up front. Because what happened there was here, where I'm up here. I found out is where people was running the tab up, and then they say, well, and then they'll go up there and pay, and they say, well, we didn't get this. Well, yeah, you did, because somebody said table so and so, like table 13 or table 12. Say, or they walk out and not pay. So now, anytime you get beer or whiskey in there, you gotta pay for up front. Which I can understand that, and that's what it should be. Now with me, I can walk in there. They know my role because I'll pay up front if they got what I want. But I'll drink something else. But I'll pay for it up front here. Or what I'll do is I'll hand them a 20, and I say, take that 20, take what I pay for out now, and then you let me know how much is left. Then I'll use it on for how many I can get. And I said, let me know how many I can get. Then what's left over of the money you guys keep. That's how I do it. Because somebody came there one night. I was doing that. And they were sitting up there eating. They was drinking too. Well, I said, I want another Coors Light. Drink out one. I said, give me another Coors Light. I'd have like 3 or 4 more. I drank the 3 or 4 of them. I get up and about ready to walk out. Well, they made a kind of a smart comment like, he ain't paying for that before I can get a word out. Wendy was there and she says, oh yes he did. He paid for that. She says his bill was paid in full. And she says every time he comes in here he'll lay down a 20 and he'll pay for it. And I said then he goes home. And I said, yeah, and I said, I don't live too far from here anyways. So if I get possibly drunk here, I don't have that far to walk. Well, where do you live? I said, ain't none of your business where I'm at. But yeah, thank God I don't run the bars anymore. Once in a great while, I might go in, get something to eat or something, maybe have a couple beers, but other than that, I won't. I won't run it. It's cheaper, to be honest with you. It's cheaper to go to the store and buy your beer and go home and drink. Because if you go, say, like here, a bottle of beer here is about 3 something. So by the time you sit there and drink about 4 or 5 of them, you could have went and bought a 6 pack or a 12 pack for the price they're charging you at the bar. I try to tell people that, but some people wouldn't listen to me. I said, figure it out. Tax no. So say like $3.35, and you times that and say like you drink 5. There's Well, hold on. So say like beer is $3.35. You times that by your 5 beers, you're gonna be spending $16.75. So I can go get a 6 pack. Matter of fact, I can go get 2 6 packs plus a tall boy plus a can of chew for that price. And I tell you another thing I like drinking at home. You get a little drunk, you ain't too far from the bed. Before I even start drinking all day, say I'm drinking tonight, or say I'm just drinking, I'll get everything I need done. Store, here, eating, whatever. Then, yeah, they're called social drinkers. Then what I do, then I'll go ahead and get in my PJs and a baggy t-shirt. That's what I'm wearing tonight, baggy shirt and my PJs. I'll eat. Then I'll start my drinking. And that's way when I get done, I'll just hop into bed. I don't have to worry about getting in no fights with anybody. I don't have to worry about getting pulled over or stopped. I don't have to worry about people slobbering all over you. I don't have to worry about these women coming up to me. Oh, hey, baby. Oh, we can have fun tonight if you buy me a beer. No. You know, well, I'm not way too, but I want something in my system before I eat because I don't want to drink on an empty stomach because I made that mistake before and got sick. I mean, I'll eat like a lunch meat sandwich or something not heavy. But, and this what I do too sometimes all day, is if I got extra money, I'll order a pizza or something. Then I'll eat a sandwich earlier, like early in the day or something, enough to cook my stomach. Then I'll order a pizza, and then after I get done drinking, I'll just take a couple slices of pizza, throw it in the microwave, and eat. And then I might drink me a bottle of pop or a couple cans of pop, and then I'll, you know, because I tell you what happened to me one time. I was drinking screwdrivers. That's vodka and orange juice. Well, a buddy of mine asked me, he says, "Oh, pizza." And he asked me, he says, "Have you ate anything today?" And I said, "No." Boy, that was my mistake. I got sicker than a dog. We was up by his cousins, and I say from his trailer to their trailer, probably about 50, 60 yards. Dude, I was out there puking my guts up. I was a doggone drunk. I told him I'm going down there to pass out. Just luck I got down there and I was on the couch. Before Sally hit me again, I got outside, picked my guts up again. Well, he was so freaking drunk when he walked in. I don't see how he made it back down there. I don't see how he made it in bed. I woke up next morning with the worst hangover. I couldn't even smell the. I told him, I said, don't cook nothing right now. I got a heck of a hangover. My head's spinning. I got a headache. I can't move. Yeah, I wonder what his ring spinning. Yeah, but I found out. I learned the hard way. So now anymore, if he come here and says, Jeff, you want to drink? Well, yeah, hold on, let me get something to eat first. Then we'll drink. I mean, that's when I really started drinking. Now, I mean, I can still drink on kind of empty stomach still, but I'll pay for it. But yeah, yep. I had my fair share of alcohol all day. I had my fair share of whiskey. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I had my fair share of alcohol and whiskey. But now, since I had this surgery and stuff done, man, I've laid off tremendously. I haven't touched any beer for 3 or 4 weeks now. It's just, I got some change on me. I got like $1.50 to go over to get me a tall boy. I was thinking about that earlier, going to get a King Carbon now. The more I sit here, the more I thought about it, the more I thought about it. I'm like, nah, not tonight. Not tonight. I was tempting, but I went this long, you know. Don't get me wrong. I might have a couple beers every now and then, but not to the point that how can I put it? I might go get a 3 pack and drink that, and that's it. It ain't like it used to be. Have 4 or 5 3 packs, and you know, I tell you what I did. I here about a month ago, I bought 2 3 packs. No joke. Well, I drank the first 3 beers. I was fine. So I took the other 3 pack. I said, well, I'll save up for tomorrow. So I sit here drunk the first 2. No lie, all day. Drunk 2 of those. Well, I knew I had one more sitting there. Like, well, I'll wait till here later on this evening and drink those. Drink the last one. All day I sit here trying to drink that one. Couldn't even do it. I got down to almost not even a half a can. I was like, nope, can't do it. Pulled it out. And a lot of people says, oh, you'll have the shakes and you'll go through the withdrawals. Nah, not me. Oh, you'll get back into it. No, no. Just like with this foot, before I had it amputated, before I even went to the hospital, Tim out there says, I said, Tim, I said, I'm letting up on the alcohol, man. I said, I can't do it. Oh, you can have a little bit of whiskey here and there. And I said, no. Tim is the type of person, he's an enabler. He'll enable you to do it. Oh, I ain't gonna hear it. No. So now it's like, now I'm like my dad. I'll tell you why. God had in his mind, like I got in my mind. The day, I won't forget the night he was drunk. He was literally drunk. He's one of those happy drunks, not to argue with nobody. He's just one of those like I'm talking to you. So, not no more are they. But I won't forget that night. He came home drunker than a skunk. Talked to my mom like I'm talking to you. He says, Margaret, he says, I'm done. Just done with what? He said, I'm done drinking. He says, I'm done. He came home by 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. Summertime, still daylight. I won't forget this. He says I'm keeping buddies with him until I go and get this truck in the morning. He says after I get that truck, we're gonna go straight. We're gonna bring the truck back here, and he says we're in Greenfield. They had the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, in town at the time before they closed down with the everything's over Hillsboro. He says that's what we're going to do. He says we're gonna go get that truck. Be all goody goody. He says we're gonna come over here and park it. We're gonna keep the plate on there. We're gonna go straight up to the DMV. We're gonna get that title straight in my name, and we're gonna. He says instead of getting a 30-day tag, we're gonna go ahead and get plates for it and everything. He says as soon as we do that, he says I'm done with him. He says the reason why I'm wanting to get that done, that's why he can't come back on me and get that truck back because it's still in his name. What's my mom do? She goes down and get a 6-pack. I won't get Old Milwaukee. I think it was Old Milwaukee or Pop's Blue Ribbon. I can't remember. She sticks it in the refrigerator. She tells Dad, she says, Coach, she says, 6 bucks in the refrigerator. He says, Margaret, what did I tell you? So I went to, it was summertime. We was out of school. Sure enough, by God, Dad was right. Even though he was drunk, he was right. Go over and got that little blue truck, 5-speed. And by the way, that's how I learned to drive a standard, by the way. I was about 12 years old. I won't forget it. And you know, after Dad did that, Dad was absolutely right. He quit drinking. Don kept calling over, kept calling him up, telling him, come on, let's go have some beer. And Dad says, no, I'm not. He said, he told me one day, He says, Jeff, who's out on the phone? I said, Don Pryor. And I said, he's wanting you to go drinking with him. He says, and Josh, you tell him no. Well, one day Don had enough nerve to come over Dad's house one day. I say probably about a week. Well, I happened to look out one day and I said, Dad, Don's out there. He says, do what? I said, Don's out there in his record. Dad shook his head and he says, I know what he's wanting to do and it's not going to happen. So Dad played it off. Don comes to the door. Dad says, let him in. Mom was doing something. She was somewhere, and I decided to stay home. Don comes in, standing there in the doorway, and everybody knows my dad but Hank. He said, oh, Hank, come on. He said, I know darn well that you don't mean nothing by it. He says, come on, let's go down here and have some beer. He says, Don, what did I tell you? No. He says, now, dang it, now, Don, he says, I told you no. And he says, I mean it. Now, Don, now, I don't want to have to get pissed off about this. He says, now, you're asking for it. And he says, now, Don, he says, I don't care if you come around here and talk to me or whatever. But he says, don't come around here and ask me to go drinking. If you're going to come around here and ask me to go drinking with you, he says, don't come around. Don't call. Well, finally, Dad let the cat out of the bag the reason why he quit drinking with him. They was down at the Pink Valley Bar down Bainbridge that night. Well, apparently, Don didn't tell Pat, which is his wife, what he was doing. Well, at the time, there was like 3 or 4 bars in Greenville at the time. Well, they like go down to the Pine Valley Bar because it's not as rowdy. Well, apparently, she shows up down there. She walks in and she apparently tells Don to get in our record and head for the house and turn around and told my dad, you're going to have to find your own way home. Well, apparently they was already drinking prior before they went down there. Don decided to drive his record down there instead of his pickup truck. And I guess Doc picked up and told her, he says, I'll be damned if I am. He's the one that brought me down here. He's the one that's going to take me home. Well, they got into an argument over it. Took it outside. And Dad looked at Don. He says, he said, you're going to take me home. And he says, this is it. I'm done. Because what they was doing, they was going back and forth to buy. You know, he'll buy, my dad will buy. Then he'll buy, then my dad will buy. But there's times my dad bought. Well, that night, Don owed Dad big time on the alcohol, on the beer. So that's what Don was doing. So they snuck down there and didn't tell nobody where they was going. But according, my mom and them knew exactly where they always went. If they're not none of the bars there, they're down to the Pain Valley bar. It's a different name now, but anyways. I can remember that night my dad got all the records, had a beer in his hand. He took, I seen him cracking them. Took one big drink out of it, threw the rest of it in the back of the record, and he's roasting down going. Well, that's what started it. Well, fast forward to about, I don't know, 2000. It was in the early 2000s. I was over at the boat docks fishing one day. I drove over to fish. Well, I seen this one guy approach me. He says, "You Jeff?" Yeah, what? He says, "You remember who I am?" No, not really. The more he got to talking, I said, "You're old Don Pryor, ain't you?" He says, "Yeah." He said, "How you doing, Don?" "Oh, not too good, Jeff," he says. "Found out I got stomach cancer." "Stomach cancer?" I said, "I hate to hear that, Don." He says, "Yeah," he says, "for all those years of drinking." He says, "How's your dad doing?" I said, "Oh, same old," but I said, "He's got emphysema, chronic bronchitis. He ain't good at shape." And he says, "Would you think that I will still talk to me?" I said, "I don't know." I said, "Don, I can't answer that question." I said, "You know how Dad is." I said, "Once Dad's got something in his head," I said, "you just might as well knock it out of the ballpark." I said, "I could talk to him, Mo." And I said, "I don't even know what's going on," but I said, I said, "Don't call. Don't call him." I said, "I'll let you know." So I was telling him about Mom and everything what happened to her, and telling him what was going on with me at the time. And I said, "Don, you still drinking?" He says, "Well, anyway, yes and no." He says, "I've read up on the alcohol, but," he says, "with this stomach cancer is getting to me," he says, "I've got nothing to lose." Well, at that time, the medicine back then, I mean, the medicine was advanced, but it wasn't advanced like it is now. So I went home and I told Dad, I said, "You ain't gonna believe who I ran into over at the boat docks." He says, "Who?" And I said, "Well, I'll give you a hint." And I said, "You used to run around with and drink with him." He says, "Who?" I said, "Oh, he owns a record and yada yada yada." He said, "You talked about old Don Pryor, ain't you?" I said, "Yep." I said, "You ain't gonna believe what's wrong with him." I said, if he didn't tell you, you wouldn't take nothing of it. He said, what's wrong with him? I said, he's telling me he's got stomach cancer from all them years of drinking beer, the alcohol. And I said, he asked about how you was doing, and he said if you was still mad at him, he's wanting to know if you'll talk to him. And I told him, don't be calling the house. I told him, I said, I'll let him know. He says he's still drinking. And I said, well, I said, he told me he's kind of let off of it, but I doubt that. He's dying. Then he figures what to have. Nah, I ain't gonna talk to him. I'm still, after what he done to me. I said, well, Dad, I said, basically that's what I kind of told him. I said, you know what, guy's got something in his head, and he did him wrong like that. I said, it's still gonna stick with him. But I said, Dad, come on. I said, Don, I said, come on, Dad, just just do one thing for that man dies. Make peace with him. Just make peace with that man face to face. I can have him come over, you make peace with him, and then go to his grave in peace. I said, how would you feel when somebody's trying to make you see that, and you and they're nah. I said, Dad, you guys, yeah, you may have your phone now because of what happened. But by God, you guys been friends all these years, and at the time you guys friends, you let some little thing fall out like that. So I said, now I want you to think about it. And he's getting mad at me, but he knew I was telling the truth at the time. I said, now I want you, by God, I want you to think about it. Well, I didn't say no more. A couple of days later, the old man looked at me and he said, well, go over and tell him, but he says on one condition. I knew what he was going to say. I said, yeah, what's that? He says, you tell him if he comes over here that he's no alcohol. And he best not be drinking before he comes over here. All right, Dad. So I go over and heck, I didn't know it. So I went over to his boy's Mark's garage. I said, hey, I said, where's your dad at? I said, my dad wants to see him. Mike looks at me and says, do what? I said, my dad wants to see your dad and he wants to come over. He said, Chef, you don't know? Know what? He says, Dad passed away a day or so. He says, a couple days ago. I said, do what? I said, Mike, what? He says, yep. He says, we went over to the house and we found him. I said, doggone it. Mike, I'm so sorry. He says, oh, no, 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 no. He said, don't you apologize. He said, you didn't know. I said, well, I said, I still feel bad about it because I said, I didn't know anything what was going on. He said, well, we haven't done anything yet. Still trying to make funeral arrangements. But so I went back over to Dodge and I was sitting there, head all down. Dad looks at me and says, what's wrong with you? Well, I stopped over. He says, yeah, I am. Daddy's dead. He says, do what? And he's dead. He died. He says, you talk about old man Don. Yeah, Dad. He died. And I said, Mike was telling me over at the garage that they never heard anything from him like they normally do because he says he normally comes out of the house. But I said, when they went over, they found him. I said, he must die in his sleep. I said, damn, man. He says, I hate to hear that. I said, well, but I kind of bothered Dad for a while, even though Dad didn't show it, but you could pretty much tell. And Dad was the type of person that, yeah. And I didn't say too much after I told him because I knew I didn't want to upset him more than he was already upset and agitated. But, like Dad used to say, life goes on. I had a lot of friends come and go. I have a lot of friends who passed away, and I was like that at the time. I got mad at a couple of them because of what they done and how they done me. And I wish I would have went back and and say, "Hey, man, I'm sorry for being mad at you, and I'm sorry for doing this and that." And I wanted to bury the hatchet right then and there, and whatever. I had people come up to me and said, so and so died or passed away, and I said, no. I said, I haven't seen him in years or whatever. So life goes on. I have some classmates that passed away because they couldn't handle life. Um, I have friends that passed away from being sick or natural causes, and I had other friends who went out the hard way, the easy way. Sad. I was friends with some classmates, and there's times I thought about them, where they're at, what they're doing. I had friends, I had people that didn't like me at the time when I was in school, and now we're friends because they was hanging out with a certain crowd of people, try to so-called popular kids, being popular, so they want to hang out with the popular kids and act like them to put you down because you was different over here with the different crowd. And there's been friends I have fallen out with over some of the dumbest stuff, in which I'm in the right, they're in the wrong. No, I've been in the wrong, and they was right. But I have fallen out with friends where I was right and they was wrong, and they won't admit they're wrong, so they still won't talk to me still this day. And I'm waiting for them to apologize. Life goes on. Uh, I've learned over the years that some things gotta let go and move on. Yeah, I may get mad at the moment because somebody might say something wrong or brush me the wrong way or something, but I'll get over it. You know, just like I got a friend of mine's helping me. I said because she said something one day. I said, "You need to get off my hind end. Back up a little bit." I said, "People don't need to know because there's a social worker at the hospital started asking me a bunch of personal questions that I didn't want to answer because it wasn't none of her business." So she started telling, and I got so mad, so mad. I didn't say nothing at the moment, but done everything I kind of told her. I was kind of wrong. Why? I said, it wasn't your place to say anything to them. That was my place. You know, that's right. You can't live in the past. Um, Now I said, that's my place to say anything. It ain't nobody else's place but mine. If they want to know, I'll say it. But when you get into my now general questions, yes, that's fine. But when you start getting in my personal business, like my finances, and if I'm drawing a check or I'm doing this, personal stuff, that if I don't know you and you start asking me, that's where I got a problem. I got a problem with that. It ain't nothing about me having pride, and I'm right back in this bathroom. hill. My glasses out. All right, guys, there.